How's it going, everyone? It's your boy Camden McDonald, the Autistic Historian. It was around mid-2017, if I remember correctly, and that was when I very first fell in love with the RMS Titanic. And because I fell in love with the RMS Titanic, and it got me into history, and I owned a very small YouTube channel at the time, and Titanic was a very popular subject, and I really desperately needed views, I decided to create a history video talking about the history of the RMS Titanic, and that is how I ended up with this video. Judging by the thumbnail, it definitely did not age like fine milk. Anyways, I don't remember anything that I put in that video, because that was around like 7 years ago. But recently I stumbled upon it while just doing some nostalgic scrolling on my homepage, and I decided, why don't I react to it and see how well I knew the Titanic when I first started learning about it? So that's what we're going to be doing in today's video. I'm going to react to the 7-year-old video and see how well past me knew the RMS Titanic when I first started researching the topic. So let's get right into it. Alrighty. Hi, Facecam. I pulled up the video, and right off the bat, I'm hiding my face in shame because I would know that future me would react to this and say, oh, I did not know much about the RMS Titanic. Shame on you, past Camden. Shame on you. Anyways, I'm gonna get ready for a cringe fest. Let's get this started.
Hello everyone, this is Camden McDonald, and today, welcome back to a face cam video. I know it's been a very long time since I've done this, since I've been working on more Lego animations and whatnot. Anyways, I'm going to teach you about one of the most famous ships in all history.
Was past tense?
The RMS Titanic.
Dang. I mean, I knew I was quite a fanatic at clay as soon as I picked it up, but I didn't know I was, like, that detailed, because, granted, there is a couple things wrong with this model. The funnels and my OCD, the spacing on the funnels. Oh, that's not good. The masts are freakishly thick, but that's because of physics, because young me knew that if they were thinner, they would just... a decently shaped stern maybe could have brought this back a little further, maybe right under this part of the deck house. That's not the deck house. But speaking of the deck house, there is no deck house that the funnels are resting on. They're just resting on the freakishly thin deck. That means there's also no wheelhouse, and there's no crow's nest. But other than that, it's a decent model.
The RMS Titanic was the most famous ship in the world. And let me tell you the history about the Titanic and how and why she sank and broke apart. Way back in 1908, there were two people that came up with the idea to build the Titanic. It took roughly 3,000 people to put the ship together, and about 3 years to build, and was completed in 1912.
Okay, starting off pretty accurate. I did at least know that back in 2018.
The Titanic was almost as long as 3 football fields. Like, this is a football field, this is a football field, and this is a football field.
I can't see.
And taller than the Statue of Liberty. Like, the Statue of Liberty is about this tall.
Well, yeah, Statue of Liberty is that tall, but if you count out the pedestal, because with the pedestal, the statue stands at 305 feet, but without the pedestal, it stands at 151 feet. Titanic was 175 feet in total, that is including the masts.
And the Titanic was 876 feet, 0.9 inches long.
876 9 inches? Where did I pull that from? Calm down. Your parents are home. Don't make your neighbors think you're crazy. 882 feet 9 inches. That's the actual number. But where did I pull that from? Whatever.
A height of 175 feet, including the
I got
antennas,
that right at least.
And a width of 98 feet, 0.8 inches.
98 feet 6 inches. I was off by 2 inches, but I guess I'll give that a pass.
So the Titanic had two other sister ships that look a lot like the Titanic.
Yep.
The Olympic and the Britannic.
Okay, at least I got their names accurate, but yeah, Titanic had two sister ships, the Olympic and the Britannic. I'm surprised not too many people know about it. Well, I guess mostly because Titanic gets overshadowed by its dark story, that many people don't focus on the fact that she had similar ships in the Olympic class, but whatever, I'm getting a little sidetracked.
I'll explain. I'm gonna do the history about those two in the future, but for now,
I never did.
Let's focus on the Titanic. So, the Titanic carried 20 out of a possible 64 lifeboats. Well, back then, the number of lifeboats was based on the size of the ship, not how many passengers it could carry.
Well, yeah, that's partially true, but not only really that, but lifeboats were seen as like a ferry, where a rescue ship would pull up alongside a sinking ship, then they would switch their lifeboats, transferring them, going back and forth, picking up and dropping off survivors. That's how lifeboats worked back then, which is why the Titanic and other ships during that time did not have enough lifeboats for the entire ship's population.
Which is weird.
So, you think that's weird? I literally just explained why, and back then it made sense.
So they also wanted to keep the number of lifeboats low so that the deck wasn't cluttered. But
I've heard that being tossed around when I first started learning about Titanic, but looking back at it, because of the explanation that I just gave you guys, I think that was more or less a myth that was started up, but whatever.
They shouldn't have carried 64 lifeboats, because this is crazy.
Literally just explain why.
Also, many claimed the Titanic was unsinkable because it's...
Okay, guys. I failed myself. I'm retiring from YouTube. I quit. We're done. Bye-bye. No. No, 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 no. Titanic was never called unsinkable. Due to a single White Star Line ad and newspapers, people called her practically unsinkable. But due to the newspapers and a single ad that was posted by the White Star Line, many people think that the White Star Line and the newspapers called Titanic completely unsinkable. They're never gonna sink ever in their entire lives. No, no, no. That is not how it played out. It was just misworded and an advertisement and the newspapers, which is why today everyone calls Titanic unsinkable when she was never called unsinkable.
Hull was divided into 16 watertight compartments.
Okay.
Some people say if up to 4 of these flooded, the ship would still stay afloat.
Well, yeah, because that's just simple physics, because the water would just rise up to the water line on the outside of the ship, and if 4 compartments were flooded and each bulkhead went up to E deck, it would not rise over the bulkheads. But on the night Titanic sank, 6 compartments were flooded, which meant the water was going to rise over them and spill into the next and cause a chain reaction that would sink it.
Disaster. On the morning of April 10th, 1912, people began boarding the Titanic in Southampton, England, so it could begin its maiden voyage. It would stop at Cherbourg, France, and then Queenstown, Ireland to pick up more passengers. Then begin its long journey across the North Atlantic Ocean all the way to New York City. So, on April 14th, 1912, warnings were coming in of icebergs from other liners. So Captain Edward Smith, he was the captain of the ship, had plotted a new...
What? Wait. So Captain Edward Smith, aka, he was the captain. Yeah, because I just said captain before his name. And I was about to say aka the captain, but I stopped. I was like, no, he was the captain. Because I just said he was the captain. Oh dear. My grammar back then doesn't work. Heck, even today my grammar is still crappy.
Course and continued to steam at full speed. And plus, the Titanic's highest speed was 27 miles per hour.
Well, 23 knots, but I think I converted knots into miles an hour before I recorded this, but I think it's actually 29 miles an hour is 23 knots, but I'll check that after the video.
So, as it became dark, the temperatures were dropping to below freezing, and there was no moonlight or waves, making it difficult to see approaching icebergs.
Well, I was very specific, making it difficult to see approaching icebergs. I was not saying any ships or any rocks or any obstacles. Nope, I just specifically said icebergs. Totally not foreshadowing.
At 11:39 p.m., the ship's lookout, Frederick Fleet, had spotted an iceberg from the crow's nest. He rang the warning bell and telephoned the officers at the ship's bridge, shouting,
"Iceberg, straight ahead."
"Thank you, narrator."
What? Okay, that voice you were hearing was my mother. She's recording this, I can tell. And first of all, she made a historical inaccuracy. She yelled iceberg straight ahead. No, it was iceberg right ahead, which was spoken by Frederick Fleet. Oh my gosh. And afterwards I said, "Thank you, narrator." Is Mom the narrator? No, she's the camera woman. What is wrong with my grammar? Even back then in 2019, it was still sucky.
Frederick Fleet had spotted the iceberg with his eyes as the crow's nest binoculars were locked away. The Key's owner, Officer David Blair, had been removed from the Titanic's crew at the last minute and forgot to hand over the key. The officers on the bridge quickly turned the ship away from the iceberg, but it was too late.
Okay. I was worried because I thought I was going to go into the theory that if the Titanic's binoculars were accessible, Fleet and Lee would have been able to spot the iceberg and turn the ship away before it was too late. No. Long story short, cold water mirage obscures the iceberg. You can't see it without enhanced views.
For 10 seconds, the Titanic grazed the iceberg along its side, ripping several holes in its hull below the waterline with fragments of ice falling off the iceberg and hitting the deck.
Okay, I just realized I said ripping several holes in its hull below the waterline. At least I got that right, because many people today think that the iceberg caused one giant gash. No. Because if she did have a gash, she would have sunk in mere minutes. She actually ripped several small incisions in the hull, and that's why she sank so slowly.
Well, many passengers didn't even feel the collision. And they turned the ship the opposite way so they can keep it from hitting the propellers, which is pretty clever if you tell me.
That's what they were intending to do. They were attempting to port round the iceberg. Long story short, they would turn to the starboard, the bow would avoid it, but the stern would still impact it. Then they would turn to port and avoid it without having extra damage on the ship. It didn't work out so well because, as we see, the bow still collided with the iceberg.
So, 11:50 p.m., Captain Edward Smith and the ship architect Thomas Andrews went to inspect the damage. They knew that—
Yeah, but Thomas Andrews wasn't the ship's complete chief designer. That's still like a misconception that's going around. He didn't technically design the entire Olympic class of ocean liners. Not only was it an entire team, but he only received his chief engineer status at Harland and Wolff after Olympic was, I think it was after Olympic was launched, and when Titanic was about to be launched.
The ship would start sinking, and by this time, 6 of the watertight compartments at the front of the ship's hull were already breached and began flooding.
Wow. I was not expecting to say 6 compartments. I thought that I was going to say 5 because of the James Cameron film. I thought I was going to say 5, but no. I got it right. I said 6. Good job, Past Cameron. I take back everything that I previously said about you. Your grammar, your history knowledge, you're doing just fine. He's not. He's not really.
12 a.m. The captain sent out a distress call over the radio in the hopes that there were other ships nearby and gave the—
Wait. What did I just hear?
And the captain sent out a distress call over the radio in the hopes that there were other ships nearby.
The captain sent out a distress call over the radio. My guy. the captain went to John Phillips and Harold Bride and told them to send out a distress call over their Marconi telegraph to see if there were other ships nearby. First of all, it wasn't the captain. And a radio, it was a Marconi telegraph machine. I don't even think radios existed back then. I know they were around in the 30s, but in the 10s, I don't think so. A radio.
He gave the order for the Titanic's passengers to board the lifeboats. He knew there were only enough for half the population of the Titanic.
Yeah, they were around 1,200.
At 12:25, lifeboats began their loading with women and children first, as this was the protocol at sea. Many passengers still did not understand what was going on, and confusion and disorganization meant that the first lifeboat to leave and only 28 women and children aboard when it could carry 65 people.
Yep.
Crazy, right?
Yeah,
First
crazy,
officer
right?
Murdoch took the order to meet women and children first, then men, if they were there, while Second Officer Lightoller took it to mean women and children only, and any men that got in would be instantly shot with a gun and killed. Crazy, right?
Well, yeah, that's crazy, because that's just outrageous. If Lightoller said women and children only, and if any men still got into the boat, he would kill them with a gun. Okay, I think I can tell where I got that from. The James Cameron film. First of all, in the movie, it was actually Murdoch who was shooting the passengers, not Lightoller. And secondly, Lightoller and Murdoch, they did fire warning shots on a couple of occasions, especially during the launchings of collapsibles A and B because of the crowds that were rushing them. But no one, and even to this day, there's no evidence and no reports of any passenger nor officer getting shot on board the Titanic. I can't believe my past self. Wow.
The RMS Carpathia, which was 58 miles away, heard the distress call and began sailing towards the sinking Titanic to help rescue the passengers. And plus, lifeboats were only meant for carrying people to rescue ships and not keep the entire ship population afloat.
Wow, I got that right. I literally just explained it to you guys earlier because I wasn't I knew that? Wow, I'm shocked. Moving on.
So, fireworks were shot into the sky to help locate the sinking Titanic.
Distress flares, but same thing.
By 1 a.m., with the lower decks flooding, the bow, aka the front of the ship,
No kidding.
The bow of the ship began to sink below the water surface. Water was pouring in 15 times faster than it could be pumped out, which was not helped by the fact that many of the passengers had left their portholes open. The unsupported stern.
They left their portholes open? I've never heard that before. They left their portholes open? Okay, I think I may have gotten that confused with the sinking of the Titanic sister ship, the Britannic. Because on the day it sank, the ship was pretty hot on the inside, so many of the nurses and stewards opened their porthole windows to let the air in, but after the ship struck the mine and began sinking, and everyone went up on deck, they didn't close their portholes, so that allowed more water to fill into the ship and sink it faster. But I've never heard that about Titanic before. Besides, it was below freezing that night, so why would you need to open your porthole windows if it's already frigid outside? And besides, many passengers didn't even want to get into the lifeboats because they're like, but we're on board a warm ship, so why would we need to do a lifeboat drill in the freezing cold conditions when it's just not necessary, especially in this cold weather? Moving on.
And its propellers rose out of the water into the air. Panic and chaos set in as lifeboats were running out. Some people pushed their way to the lifeboats, while others accepted their fate and stayed behind, or gave out their spots to more valuable passengers.
Voyable? What did I just say?
Gave out their spots to more valuable passengers.
I think I meant to say vulnerable, but whatever.
By 2:05 a.m., the last lifeboat had left, but 1,500 people were left on the ship. The deck was now at a very steep height, and many passengers fell into the freezing, icy waters.
Yeah. Well, many passengers did fall into the icy waters. The ship did not pitch itself at a 45-degree angle. Again, I'm pretty sure I got this from not only YouTube videos that I see of everyone portraying it as such, but also the James Cameron film. No. Titanic did not rise to a 45-degree angle. The actual stress point where the ship broke in half was at around a 24-ish degree angle.
At 2:17 a.m., there was a humongous crack. Because the stern gave way under the pressure and broke off.
I was worried about that. I was calling it from the very start. This is not the true breaking point of the RMS Titanic. It's a little... Saying it out loud is going to be a little hard or confusing, so I'm going to use this model to demonstrate. So, the Titanic actually broke in front of the third funnel, behind the third funnel, and from sea deck going back and up just in front of the fourth funnel. Those three sections broke off the Titanic when she broke in half. Hopefully you guys aren't confused.
With the front half disappearing to the bottom of the ocean. At some point, Captain Edward Smith went down with the ship, a maritime tradition that the captain would do in accepting responsibility for all on board. Some say he went to the wheelhouse and waited for the end, while others say he committed suicide using a pistol.
Whoa, and this video was made for kids. And I just showed... Wow, that... Anyways, going on those two theories that I just said, went to the wheelhouse, that was due to the James Cameron film, but that's not what actually happened. But suicide, I'm pretty sure I got that from the James Cameron film, but that was Murdoch who did it in the film, and he didn't even also do it in real life as well. Thomas Andrews and Captain Smith were last seen by a passenger on Titanic's port bridge wing as it was just starting to submerge in the water. Smith turned to Andrews and reportedly said, "We cannot stay with her any longer, she is going." And then both of them jumped over the bridge wing and into the water, and both died that night of hypothermia.
Stern, smashing into the water surface, he came level, and soon started to fill with water, sinking nearly 4 kilometers beneath the surface of the ocean. Many died as a result of drowning, but the main cause of death was hypothermia and the freezing waters which occurred within minutes.
Yeah, the waters that night were 28 degrees Fahrenheit, which technically is below freezing, and for water temperatures at least, but due to salt in the water, it causes it to not freeze over. So it's basically like swimming in ice, but the ice is liquefied. That's how cold it was.
Some of the lifeboats had returned, but only 4 survivors were found in the freezing waters. Only 705 people had survived the disaster.
Yeah, Okay, so going back on the thing, I say some of the lifeboats returned. One lifeboat returned, and that was the lifeboat commanded by 5th Officer Harold Lowe. I keep forgetting the number of it, but it was commanded by Harold Lowe. And I say 705 people survived. That is the common knowledge version of the actual death toll that night. The actual number was, 712. And the death toll was 1,496. Watch, I'm going to say 1,500. Just watch, I'm going to say 1,500.
At 3:30 a.m., the distressed flares from the Titanic were spotted by the Carpathia.
Or we're just going to skip over it, okay. We don't know how many people died the night the Titanic sank, but we only know the survivors, meaning that we did not count we did not keep a good count of the passengers on board Titanic. Gosh.
The Carpathia arrived at the scene at 4:10 a.m. and picked up the lifeboats. And many people wanted to find the Titanic, but everyone failed until September 1st, 1985. There was a group of men that were on an army mission, and they accidentally found the Titanic.
A group of men were on an army mission, and they accidentally found the Titanic. No, that was kind of the cover-up-ish version of it. Because Robert Ballard, who was the man who led the expedition to find the Titanic, he approached the Royal Navy to ask for funds to go find the Titanic, but due to public interest failing at the time, they're like, no. But they decided to come up with a compromise with Robert Ballard because they told him that they lost 2 nuclear submarines in the 1960s, the Thresher and the Scorpion. And this was during the Cold War, so they don't know if the Russians were sneaking around these nuclear submarines. So they said, we'll give you the funds to go and find the nuclear submarines. And if you do find them, and there's time left over, you can use that time to go and find Titanic. And that's exactly what they did. They found the Thresher and the Scorpion so quickly, they still had 12 days left to find the Titanic. And when they did, the US Navy then used that as a cover-up for this Army mission because they didn't want the Russians knowing that they found their own nuclear submarines.
They accidentally found the Titanic under the water.
I remember this model.
So this is the bow section, and 16 and 200 football fields apart was the stern.
Yeah, as you see in this model, the stern looks very damaged, and just like in real life, the stern actually looks like this. Like, no joke. The stern is literally just a wreck. Like, the stern, it's barely recognizable today, and I'm surprised I displayed it like this accurately. I guess all I did was just rip it apart and just place it down there and called it a day.
It's a very small model. Let's get a close-up of it. Zoom in. There we go. That's much better. So,
this is pretty cool, not gonna lie.
This is what the Titanic looks like under the water. So, the first thing that the people had spotted of the Titanic were one of these 5 boilers.
Am I talking about when they found the bow? Because if they did, then no, they did not find the boilers. They found the hull of the Titanic first. Because while yes, in the debris field, they first knew they found the Titanic when they found a lone boiler sitting on the ocean floor. And that boiler is one of 5 boilers at the hypocenter of the wreck, which is directly under where the Titanic broke in half on the surface. And that was next to the stern. But they kept going forwards, and that's when they ran into the side of the bow of the Titanic. Then they dropped their weights, and it rose past the wreck before heading to the surface.
They first found the boilers, then they found the rest of the ship.
That submarine. Oh, dear.
And about 60 feet of the Titanic is buried in the sand. 60 feet. And
I guess I didn't know what to say, so I'm just like, 60 feet was buried under the sand. Yeah, 60 feet. Cool, right?
It wasn't until about 2 years later, in 1987, that people had found the Titanic's stern.
Okay, honestly, I've never heard the years that they found the stern of the Titanic, but 1987? I might need to look that up. I don't know where I pulled that from, but now I'm kind of curious.
But some people did not want to go to the stern because the propellers were still in place and they didn't want to get stuck in the debris that was under the propellers.
I've also never heard of that before. Oh, okay. I may be getting that confused with the wreck of the Lusitania. Because when the Lusitania went down, there was a bunch of fishing wire, and I'm also pretty sure the lifeboat riggings scattered across the entire wreck, and divers were worried to go up close to them in the fear that they will get tangled in them and drown. But I've never heard that about Titanic. And on the propellers? I don't know what to say to that, honestly. But I will say this. This model is definitely much cleaner than the model on there, because the model over there showed what the wreck looks like today, just a complete wreck. But this model represents the stern more of in the, I want to say late 1970s-ish, because you could make out much more of this. And also, you could see the entire deck. I took the time, to add in the individual decks where the hull plating was ripped off. I had some dedication. That's pretty cool.
So the first thing that the people saw of the stern was the front of the stern.
Where'd I pull that from?
And these 2 boilers are these two
Boilers? What is wrong with past me? Those aren't boilers. Those are Titanic's reciprocating engines. Engines, not boilers, engines. Although the boilers are needed to power the engines, they aren't boilers.
boilers were a part of the Titanic's engine room.
These boilers are part of the engine room. No, boilers are part of the boiler room, while the engines are part of the engine room.
It's
simple
intact,
logic.
while the other one is damaged because when the stern flipped upside down and went downwards, one of the engines exploded.
Okay, I think I'm getting that confused. The engine exploded? I've never heard the engine explode before, but one thing is for certain. When the stern was going down, it didn't have time to flood, but yet it was still being pulled down by the weight of the water. So over time, after the stern left the surface and dropped to about like 200 feet under the water, the entire thing just imploded, and then it started ripping itself apart as it sped 50 miles an hour down to the bottom of the ocean.
Which caused a lot of damage on here. And
You think?
that
That thing's a wreck.
is the history of the RMS Titanic. So thanks for watching. Please give a big fat thumbs up if you like this video. And be sure to tune in next time when we talk about the RMS Olympic, one of the Titanic's sister ships. And please
And I never did.
subscribe. See you next time. Bye.
Well, I'm pleasantly shocked and partially distraught as to what I've just witnessed. Alrighty, with that concluded, there were some stuff in the video that I knew about back then that decently shocked me because I thought I didn't know about some of that stuff back then. But then again, I definitely did get quite a bit of stuff either misrepresented or inaccurate here and there. But overall, it was a pretty decent telling of the story of Titanic. Overall, I may give it a 6 out of 10 accuracy rating on how well I think I did knowing about the Titanic back in 2019. Alrighty, that's going to be it for today's video. Thank you all so much for watching. Please remember to like, subscribe, and click the bell so you never miss out on any more of my historical content, and I will hopefully see you in the next video. Peace.